Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. So two things, a warning and information. The warning is, in today's main story there is mention of sexual assault. And the information is, don't forget to check out LG Classics. Now let's get started with the first story. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice and it's by user Thoroughray and Gaslit. My 33 female husband, 36 male, may have cheated on me with my dead best friend and had an affair baby. I don't even know where to start. The past 6 months have been an absolute cluster F and it only seems to be getting worse. My best friend since elementary school, who I'll call Alice, passed away in February from cancer. She had a 2-year-old daughter who went into the custody of her mom, who I'll call Alexis, after she passed away. Last month, Alexis showed up on our doorstep unannounced, telling my husband he needs to take responsibility for his child and either take custody or start finally paying child support. She says that Alice had told her when her daughter was born who the father was, but didn't want anything to do with him. To answer the inevitable, Alice was a traveling nurse and made a lot of money, which is the only reason I can think of for why she didn't go for child support. During this conversation, my husband had the worst panic attack he's ever had. So we had to end the conversation before I could get more details. My husband's story is, I don't even know. He said that Alice's daughter is probably his, but that it wasn't what I think. Almost 3 years ago, we threw a large housewarming party as we'd just moved into our dream home after I finally finished residency and was set to make real money for once. Alice was in town and set to be at the party, but I was called into work before she got there. I didn't get back till after 3 a.m. The party was winding down, my husband was passed out upstairs and Alice had already left the party, which at the time I did find strange as we hadn't seen each other in months. My husband claims he woke up in the middle of the night to Alice on top of him, but he passed out again before he could say anything. He claims he never told me because he was worried I wouldn't believe him, which I don't know if I do. He showed me some texts he sent his best friend the next day asking for his advice about him thinking someone sexually abused him. But if he cheated, he could have had that conversation as evidence, especially since he never said Alice specifically. Ever since the party, he has been very distant with Alice, and after she had her daughter, he would even find excuses not to be around the house when she would visit at all. I don't know if that's because he cheated or if Alice did actually abuse him and this was his trauma response. Honestly, Reddit, I don't know what to do. I've known Alice since we were children and she had never come across as that kind of person. But I've also known my husband for over a decade and he's not once ever given the inclination of a cheater. He's an attractive guy and I've seen the looks he gets at the gym and he's never even given more than a glance. What the hell should I do? How do I figure out what the truth is here when Alice isn't even around to defend herself? She never even implied she liked my husband, let alone what to sleep with him. I told my husband he needs to get a DNA test before anything is decided on the child's part, but in the meantime, he needs to move out while I think about what I'm going to do here. Well, OP, I definitely agree that a DNA test needs to happen. I don't agree with you telling him he needs to move out. From the information you give us, I'm more inclined to believe that your husband is telling the truth. And I do understand that there's one party missing, so we're not getting the whole story, but we can make deductions. To me, one of the biggest pieces is that text message that he sent his friend. If he was having an affair or cheating on you, why would he send a message like that? That would definitely blow up in his face if he was cheating because the affair partner would have other evidence. And the other huge piece for me is the fact that after that night, he didn't even want to be in the same room as her. From what I understand, people that cheat also like to humiliate their partner, and what bigger humiliation would be to be with the person he cheated on you with in the same house, sharing a space with you right there. He did the absolute opposite. So again, OP, even though we have only one side of this whole thing, I'm inclined to believe your husband. I don't think he should have left the house. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Brilliant Emphasis 862 says, wow, OP, that is a mess. Paternity test for sure. The old text the next day sealed it for me. I think your friend took advantage of your husband. Good luck. This is the story of the day for me. Keep Hope Alive for You says, I don't know you or your marriage, but I think I would be inclined to believe and support my husband with the few details you've given. Arcades says, there are a lot of comments suggesting a DNA test, but I think you and your husband should consider talking to a family lawyer first to determine what may happen if the DNA establishes paternity. In all likelihood, his name is not on the birth certificate if Alice was hiding this encounter. I also don't know how your jurisdiction handles parental obligations in situations of abuse. Your husband does not seem to be fighting the possibility, so a DNA test won't necessarily solve your marital issues, and it may expose him to responsibility, financial and otherwise, that he clearly has not wanted for the last 2 years. Nobody Important says, ask yourself if you honestly believe he would send those messages as a possible future defense. Is he the type of man who would proactively build a defense just in case? Based on what you said here, I'm inclined to side with your husband. Men are never taken seriously when sexually assaulted, and marriages ended for coming forward. The fact you kicked him out says you would have automatically believed your friend, and just doing that may doom the marriage. I could never forgive my wife for that if I was in his place. If he was assaulted and told you the next day, would you believe him and ever trust him again, or would you believe your friend? Her actions shows she did something wrong, and his actions show he actively avoided her at all costs from that day forward. And Manda51210 says, this happened to my husband before we were married. I think it happens more than people realize. Men are taken advantage of by women when they are drunk. Opie's edit. Alice had always been at least a little standoffish towards him, as she thought I could do better. The first time she visited after she gave birth, she asked where he was since he wasn't home, but she never asked again after that. Also, he rarely drinks, and generally only at parties, which at our ages are few and far between. He works a tough and stressful job, so I figured once he was buzzed, he laid down and fell asleep. Not that he had drank more than normal or anything like that. Now, with your comments, I've come to the realization that my husband is being truthful. My best friend sexually abused him. Several people pointed out that with Alice not liking my husband, if it was an affair, she would have told me when she was dying, if only to separate us. You're absolutely right. I was there in the room while she passed. I held her hands for days. We talked about so much. If it was just an affair, she would have told me. But if she abused my husband, she wouldn't have said a word. That's the type of thing horrible people take to the grave. I've also come to the realization that I made a terrible mistake asking my husband to leave for a few days while I gather my thoughts. Not to make excuses, but losing my best friend to cancer, a long cancer fight at that, was brutal. To say that I was devastated wouldn't do it justice. That it happened only 6 months ago, I'm still feeling it every day. So to have this thrown on me, it's like I'm losing her all over again. Either she betrayed me and effed my husband, or she betrayed me and abused my husband. Not only have I lost her, but now I've lost the good memories, an entire lifetime's worth. It was impossible for me to look at him and not also see her and be struck with the horror and realization of that loss all over again. I felt I needed to be able to break down, grieve, and think without the fresh wave of loss I got every time I saw him. It was wrong of me to ask him to leave. You're right though, and as a few minutes ago, I've righted that wrong. I called my husband, I apologized, I told him I believed him and begged him to come home. He'll be here in a half hour at most, and I'm going to support my husband the way I know he would have supported me. I've been an off and on Reddit user for several years, and sometimes the advice given on subreddits like this can be a bit hit or miss, but today you guys did good. You've helped me realize not only that I was wrong and being stupid at that, but that I was hurting the person that needed me the most. I was selfish. I have no idea what we're going to do as far as the potential daughter is concerned, but I can assure you we'll deal with it together. It's going to take a lot of time and probably a lot of therapy to grieve this new loss. I feel numb now, as though I'll never cry again. My best friend abused my husband, which means she was no friend of mine. She flaunted it, coming to my house, sitting with me and gabbing. She brought her child here, trying to rub it in his face right in front of me. She tortured the man I loved, and I was an unknowing party to it. I feel sick to my stomach over how many times she came over just to hold it over him. I'm honestly at a loss on how to make that up to him. If you all have any ideas, please feel free to give them to me. I think I'll need all the help I can get. Tomorrow I'm going to take a leave of absence from work just until we can figure out our next steps and we can get our heads on straight. Thank you, everyone. So now let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. It's been 7 months since my original post and I've received a lot of messages asking for an update. So I decided to finally sit down and write one out. I want to start by telling you all that I love and trust my husband. My reaction to ask him for space to think in retrospect was wrong. But at the time, I didn't know what to think. It was a combination of losing my best friend again and also the fear that I was losing my husband that sent me spiraling. Again, it was a mistake to ask him to leave and I did rectify that in the end. Now for the update. As mentioned in the original post, I did take a leave of absence from work and we spent a long time just being together. Talking, reaffirming our love for one another, and figuring out what to do next. We, of course, spoke with a lawyer, and my husband was very adamant about not having anything to do with the child, but was willing to offer financial support as needed. So, we agreed to do a DNA test immediately to prove paternity and then go from there. Didn't know you could buy tests on Amazon, but with only a few weeks processing, it was the easiest path forward since Alexis lives hours away. To everyone's surprise, Alice's daughter is not my husband's. We ended up testing twice, both very, very definitive. The first test we performed ourselves as mentioned, and another after Alexis refused to believe the first test and took my husband to court for child support. For a single second, this whole thing made me second guess if my husband was abused, that this could have been her way of forcing my husband to admit to an affair. But after talking with Alexis, I don't think that was the plan. Alexis says that Alice told her my husband was the father under strict confidence, demanding that she never ever tell me or my husband. We were only ever to be told if Alexis died before Alice's daughter was old enough to take care of herself, so that she wouldn't end up in foster care. The only reason Alexis came to us then, instead of keeping that secret, is because Alice's life insurance wasn't being released yet and she was out of options. She also felt I should know my husband and her daughter had an affair. This all reaffirms in my mind that Alice did abuse my husband with the expectation of getting pregnant with his child. She obviously had other partners at the time, since one of them fathered her daughter, but no one knows who. It's clear to me that Alice believed it was my husband. I did suggest Alexis upload a sample to Ancestry, see if any matches pop up, but as Alice traveled all over for work, I don't know that anything will ever come of that. In truth, I've washed my hands of the situation. Alice did enough damage and I don't particularly plan to be around for any more. My husband and I have gone through a lot of counseling and will likely continue for a while. This whole situation damaged us both, my husband more obviously, and I don't think we'll fully heal for a very long time. Now, to answer a few questions. No, sadly there isn't a hidden diary or texts to explain what the F was going on. Also, my husband and I are not getting divorced. He understands why I reacted the way I did and has been strong when I was weak before. I've spent the past 7 months being strong while he was weak, so we're considering the whole thing even. We are still madly in love and plan to be together for a long time still. More on this. No, we will not be adopting Alice's child. If she had been my husband's, we would not have been adopting the child. Ultimately, I thank Reddit for setting me straight. There was a massive outpouring of support and corrective advice. To say I got a slap in the face would be a descriptive but apt way to put it. I needed it then and I thank you for it. To say that you may have saved my marriage is an understatement. I do, however, have some good news. During my leave of absence, while my husband and I rediscovered what makes us love each other the most, I got pregnant. we're expecting our first baby, a girl, in a little over 3 months, and my husband and I are ecstatic. And no, we will not be naming her after my dead ex-best friend. Well, OP, considering the horrible thing that your husband and you have gone through, of course, your husband the most, it sounds like you guys over the past 7 months have done a lot of work, and you have no connection to Alice whatsoever. So congratulations on the pregnancy, and here's wishing you both the best in the future. Thanks so much for sharing, and take care. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user JealousSurround228. Delete all your files? Okay. Quite a few years ago, I was a senior graphic designer for a sign shop. This one customer was always a pain in the butt, but you get that and you try to keep the returning client happy. One day, the owner sent over a design for a new sign to go on a skateboard as part of their sponsorship package at a local sports oval. This meant he invoiced the football club, not them. Now, their logo is maroon and she wanted a red background when usually it was white. I told her that I wouldn't recommend it because, for one, you would not be able to read it from a distance across the other side of the oval. The colors are too close, and two, it would look like crap. I was a bit more professional. Usually, we would also just make the logo all white, but she insisted she wanted the maroon one. Well, the sign was made and installed. And because I've been doing this job for a long time, well, it looked like crap. Oh well, we were paid, client happy, move on. A few months later, she asks for another sign to replace it, as apparently it is hard to see from a distance and her husband, also working in the business, isn't happy. Go figure. She also says that we should do it free of charge because it looks like crap and it's my fault. Remember, the football club had paid for it. I politely tell her no. She approved the design, remember? So her husband writes me a harsh email about how I should never have made it in that color, that it's not in line with his company's brand, and that I need to replace it. I got the feeling that his wife was blaming me, so I sent him the receipts, the whole email chain with my recommendations, her insistence, and approvals. I said no, I will not be replacing it free of charge. Shortly after, the wife writes me another email saying they will never use my business again. Delete all their files now. Thank you. Done. Hallelujah. I will never have to deal with her again. Although, deep down, I knew that that would not be the case, as we also sponsored the sports oval. The club used us for all their signs and printing, and I knew that I would need to have their logo for something sometime in the future. Knowing this, I maliciously complied. Evil laugh. Delete. Now, we just can't use a JPEG or PNG file. We need special files that I had set up for their business, all on brand to print consistently at the right color. I'm talking years worth of files, adverts, and signs. This means it can be very easy for us to just slot in pre-designed work when needed. A 5-minute job in some cases. Maybe a few months later, the football club needs their program printed with all the sponsors included. My time to shine. I was so happy. Mentioned to my contact that I need this business logo and advert. He said he will get them to send it through. Now, I'm not sure why, but they never sent it through for me on time. It was so strange. So I sent printing proofs without this particular logo or advert added. Mentioned I still didn't have it, and if they wanted this printed in time, I needed it as soon as possible. I was kind of hoping that I could print it without them in it, but the foodie club were diligent and wanted them in. I then get a short message from this business saying to just add in their usual advert. What? The one you told me to delete a few months back? Sorry, I don't have it. You need to send me a print-ready file in this size. About 2 weeks later, I got the ad to put in. They mentioned to keep it on file for future designs. I heard they had to pay someone to design up something for them. They also got someone else to make up a new sign to replace the crappy one. They would have had to pay for that too, as the club never ordered one through us. Haha, I still stick my finger up as I drive past their business. Well, OP, they didn't want you to work for them anymore and they wanted you to delete all of their files, and that's what you did. So, as always, it's all on them. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe